Sarah's life was what most people would call perfect. She lived in a small, quiet suburb, where the streets were lined with trees and the neighbors greeted each other with smiles and friendly waves. Her house was neat and clean, with a white picket fence that surrounded a garden full of colorful flowers. To the outside world, Sarah was a devoted wife and caring mother, always ready to lend a hand to neighbors or organize community events. People admired her for her kindness and the way she balanced her family life with such grace. Her husband Mark was a hard-working man, often away on business trips, but always making sure to call home every evening. Their 2 children were well-behaved and happy, going to school nearby and playing in the park after classes. On the surface, everything looked just like a perfect family. But no one knew that beneath that calm, orderly life, Sarah was struggling with loneliness and secrets she could not share. The trouble began on a chilly autumn morning. A leak had appeared in the kitchen sink, and water was pooling slowly on the floor. Mark, busy preparing for a week-long business trip, told Sarah to call a plumber. Sarah was not very familiar with handyman work, so she searched online and found a local plumbing service with good reviews. The man who arrived was Jake, young, confident, with a quiet charm that made her feel at ease immediately. His work was efficient, and soon the leak was fixed, but his visits didn't stop there. Jake came back a few times in the following weeks for small repairs around the house. He fixed the dripping bathroom tap, cleared the blocked shower drain, and even installed a new water heater. With each visit, Sarah found herself looking forward to his arrival. Jake was different from the usual tradespeople who only focused on the job. He asked about her family, listened carefully when she spoke, and shared stories about his own life. There was something about the way he smiled, a mix of warmth and understanding, that Sarah hadn't felt in a long time. Mark was often away, and the house sometimes felt too quiet, too empty. The children were at school during the day, and Sarah's friends were busy with their own lives. She began to realize she was craving more than just a simple chat with a plumber. It was as if Jake understood a part of her that no one else did, someone who could see beyond the surface of her polite smiles and everyday routine. One rainy afternoon, Jake stayed a little longer fixing a faulty pipe under the kitchen sink. Sarah watched him from across the room, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and guilt. The small talk turned into conversations about hopes, regrets, and dreams. Sarah had never spoken about these things with Mark or her friends. The walls of her perfect life were starting to feel like a cage. Despite the growing connection, Sarah kept everything hidden. She deleted texts and avoided mentioning Jake's visits to Mark during his rare homecomings. The secret brought a rush of thrill but also fear. What if Mark found out? What if the neighbors noticed? Sarah's mind was a battlefield of emotions, longing, guilt, and a desperate hope that this secret could bring her happiness. Meanwhile, Jake was also hiding parts of his life. To the outside world, he was just a local plumber trying to make a living, but he carried his own shadows. His past was filled with mistakes and lost chances, and this small town was a fresh start. Meeting Sarah gave him a chance to feel normal, to be someone more than just a man fixing pipes. Yet beneath his friendly exterior there was a restless energy, a hunger for something he couldn't quite name. The neighborhood itself was like a character in this unfolding story. The streets were peaceful, but small towns have a way of knowing things. Gossip traveled quickly, and eyes watched from behind curtains and fences. Some neighbors noticed Sarah's nervous glances and late-night phone calls. Others whispered about the plumber's frequent visits. Yet no one dared confront Sarah, not until the day when everything began to unravel. That morning, Sarah woke up feeling restless. Mark was away again, and the house was unusually silent. She glanced at her phone, seeing a message from Jake that made her heart skip a beat. They had arranged to meet briefly after his next repair job. Sarah dressed carefully, nervous but determined. This hidden affair was no longer just a secret. It was becoming a part of who she was. But fate had other plans. As Sarah stepped out of her house to meet Jake, a neighbor she rarely spoke to happened to see her. Mrs. Peters, an elderly woman known for her sharp eyes and sharp tongue, noticed Sarah slipping into Jake's truck. Suspicion grew inside Mrs. Peters, and she began to watch closely. Over the next few days, she quietly gathered details, noticing the times Jake arrived and left, and Sarah's increasingly anxious behavior. What Sarah did not realize was that this quiet woman was the first domino in a chain reaction that would bring her world crashing down. The peaceful suburb, with its white fences and flower gardens, was about to become the scene of secrets exposed, trust broken, and lives shattered. As the days passed, Sarah's double life became harder to maintain. Mark's calls grew shorter and more distant, and the guilt weighed heavily on her. She wanted to end the affair but felt trapped by her own desires. Jake, too, became more involved, his visits turning from casual to urgent. The line between repair work and something more personal blurred. Little did Sarah know, the simple leak in her kitchen sink was just the beginning of a story far darker and more twisted than she could have imagined. The charm of a stranger fixing her home would soon reveal a secret affair that no one saw coming, and a murder that would shock the entire community. The secret affair between Sarah and Jake was no longer just a hidden spark. It had begun to consume both of their lives. After the first few weeks of stolen moments and quick meetings during repairs, their connection deepened. Sarah's world, once confined to routines and polite smiles, was now filled with dangerous excitement and unspoken promises. Yet, as the EG affair grew, so did the risks. Sarah was careful. Every text message was deleted immediately. Every call was made when the children were at school or asleep. Jake always made sure his visits looked like normal business. But the cracks started to show. Neighbors began to notice Jake's frequent presence at Sarah's house. His truck was often parked out front for longer than a plumbing job required. Sometimes Sarah was seen slipping out late at night or returning with her hair damp as if she had met someone in the rain. The quiet suburb buzzed with whispers. People who once waved kindly now exchanged curious glances. Yet no one confronted Sarah, at least not yet. The secret was small enough to hide, but large enough to fuel suspicion. Sarah's husband, Mark, was the last person to notice the signs. His work trips took him away for days, and when he returned, he was exhausted, distracted. He trusted Sarah and assumed their life was still as perfect as it seemed. But one afternoon, Mark's trust was shattered by a small, almost meaningless discovery that would change everything. While preparing for another trip, Mark was helping Sarah pack some clothes for the kids. His hand brushed against the pocket of one of Sarah's jackets. Inside, he found a small, crumpled piece of paper with a phone number written on it. It wasn't his. The handwriting was unfamiliar, and the number did not match anyone in their family or friends list. Curiosity pulled him to look closer. That phone number belonged to Jake, the local plumber Sarah had called weeks ago. Mark felt a sharp sting in his chest. Questions raced through his mind. Why did Sarah have this number? How often had Jake been at their house? What was going on behind his back? Mark didn't confront Sarah immediately. Instead, a dark plan began to form. His anger was not the kind that would lead to a calm conversation or forgiveness. It was raw, burning with betrayal. Mark wanted answers, and he wanted control. But before he could act, the neighborhood itself started closing in. Mrs. Peters, the sharp-eyed neighbor who had spotted Sarah slipping into Jake's truck, had quietly been watching. Her suspicions grew into certainty. She told a few close friends, and the story spread like wildfire through the small community. Gossip became fuel, and soon everyone seemed to be watching Sarah and Jake. Sarah felt the pressure. The secret that once gave her excitement now threatened to destroy everything she had built. One day, while Jake was fixing the old heater in the basement, she glanced out the window and saw Mrs. Peters standing across the street, staring directly at her. The chill that ran down Sarah's spine was nothing compared to the fear that she might soon be exposed. Meanwhile, Jake was unaware that his carefully hidden life was about to unravel. The quiet man with the charming smile had kept his past well concealed. But with the affair becoming public knowledge in hushed tones, he knew he was walking on dangerous ground. His past mistakes were shadows he could no longer outrun. The first real crack in their secret came when Sarah's phone buzzed during one of Jake's visits. She excused herself quickly and stepped outside, but as she checked the message, Mark had sent a sudden text asking to talk when he returned. The threat was clear. Mark was no longer blind to what was happening. Sarah's fear deepened. She knew Mark was angry, but she didn't expect the darkness that would follow. Mark was not a man to be crossed lightly. He began to follow Sarah secretly, watching her movements, noting every meeting with Jake. His quiet rage grew with every passing day. Mark's fury took a dangerous turn when he contacted a man from the neighborhood with a reputation for violence. This man was someone Mark hoped would intimidate Jake, scare him away, and end the affair without public drama. But violence has a way of spinning out of control. One evening, Jake received an unexpected visit. The man Mark had hired confronted him in his small apartment. What started as a warning escalated into a physical fight. Jake was not prepared for the sudden attack, and the struggle turned brutal. Bruises and cuts marked the walls, and Jake barely escaped with his life. The fight left him shaken and more determined to protect himself. And Sarah, meanwhile, was torn between her secret love and the growing threat around her. She wanted to end the affair to protect her family, but the emotional bond with Jake was too strong. She feared what Mark might do if she broke away. The tension built like a storm ready to burst. News of the fight leaked quickly through the neighborhood. Some sympathized with Sarah, seeing her as a victim of a jealous husband. Others whispered about the danger Jake brought into the community. The once quiet suburb now felt like a trap, with secrets and lies choking the air. The police were eventually called after neighbors reported loud noises and signs of a struggle near Jake's apartment. An investigation began quietly, but Sarah and Mark tried to keep their involvement hidden. The stakes were higher than ever. As the story unfolded, it became clear that this was not just a simple case of a secret affair. It was a complex web of betrayal, anger, and desperation. The affair was exposed, but the real battle was only beginning. Lives would be changed forever, and the quiet suburb would never be the same. Sarah's hidden secret was out in the open, but the truth behind it was darker than anyone could imagine. The consequences of her choices were moving fast, pushing everyone closer to a tragic and violent end. Mark's discovery of Sarah's secret affair sent a wave of anger and betrayal crashing through his mind, but instead of exploding in confrontation, he carefully plotted his revenge. His heart was filled with rage, but his mind worked like a cold machine. Mark decided to gather evidence before confronting Sarah. He wanted proof of the betrayal, something undeniable that would shatter her lies and the illusion of their perfect life. Mark began to follow Sarah discreetly. Every day he watched her, from a distance, noting every meeting and every message exchanged with Jake. He installed a small camera near their home, hoping to catch them together. He tracked Jake's movements, learning his routines and habits. Mark's obsession grew, fueled by his anger and the pain of betrayal. But Mark was not just gathering proof. He also wanted to hurt Jake, to make him feel the same pain he was feeling. He knew that threatening the plumber directly could backfire, so he chose a darker path. Mark reached out to someone with a dangerous reputation, a man who lived on the edge of the community, known for violence and intimidation. Mark hired this man to scare Jake away, to send a warning that he would not be ignored. The man accepted the job without hesitation. He was used to these kinds of threats and had no qualms about using force. His presence was enough to cast a shadow over Jake's life. But the plan quickly spiraled out of control. One evening, as Jake was finishing a job in Sarah's house, the hired man appeared unexpectedly at Jake's small apartment. What was meant to be a simple warning turned violent. Jake fought back, but the thug was stronger and more ruthless. The fight was brutal, leaving Jake bruised and bleeding. The struggle tore apart the quiet illusion of normal life and set a dark tone for what was to come. Jake barely escaped with his life, but the attack left him shaken and angry. He no longer felt safe, and the risk he had taken by getting involved with Sarah now seemed overwhelming. The violence was a message, but it also exposed a dangerous game he had unknowingly entered. Sarah was caught in the middle, overwhelmed by fear and guilt. She wanted to end the affair, but the emotional ties were too strong. She was trapped between a husband bent on revenge and a lover facing real danger. The secret that once brought excitement now brought nothing but fear. Mark's plan didn't stop with the threat. He wanted to take control of the situation entirely. The evidence he collected became a weapon, and he used it to manipulate Sarah, demanding she end things with Jake and promise to stay loyal. But Sarah resisted. Her heart and mind were at war, and every day the danger grew. The community sensed the tension. Gossip spread like wildfire. Neighbors who once smiled now watched with suspicion. The quiet suburb felt heavy with secrets and fear. The police were drawn into the story after neighbors reported noises and signs of violence near Jake's home, but Mark and Sarah kept their distance from the investigation. They both wanted to control the narrative before the truth came out. As the days passed, the lines between victim and aggressor blurred. Sarah was no longer just a wife hiding a secret affair. She was part of a dark, unfolding drama where trust was broken and violence was imminent. Jake was fighting to survive, Mark was planning his final move, and the small community was about to witness the consequences of hidden desires and dark revenge. Mark's cold determination pushed him to the edge. He was no longer the loving husband or the hard-working man people admired. He had become a man, consumed by hatred, ready to do whatever it took to protect his pride and punish those who betrayed him. The tension reached a boiling point. One fateful night, Mark arranged a meeting with Jake, promising to talk and settle the matter quietly. But the meeting was a trap. Mark was prepared to take drastic action to end the affair once and for all. The quiet streets of the suburb would soon be stained with violence, and the peaceful life everyone knew would be destroyed forever. What happened next shocked the entire community. The meeting between Mark and Jake turned deadly in a way no one expected. A struggle broke out, fueled by years of pain, betrayal, and anger. It ended with Jake's body lying in a pool of blood, the victim of a grisly murder that left the neighborhood in shock and horror. The investigation that followed revealed secrets no one had imagined. Mark's involvement was undeniable, and Sarah's secret affair was exposed to the world. The quiet suburb, once a symbol of peace and order, became the scene of a brutal crime that shattered families and changed lives forever. This chapter in the story was not just about murder. It was about how hidden secrets, jealousy, and revenge can destroy everything. Mark's dark plan had succeeded, but at a terrible cost. The tragic end left scars that would never heal, and the story of Sarah, Jake, and Mark became a warning about the dangers of betrayal and the price of hidden desires. The morning after the brutal murder, the quiet suburb was shattered by sirens and flashing lights. Police cars swarmed the neighborhood, their presence announcing that something terrible had happened behind the white picket fences and well-manicured lawns. The news spread fast. Jake, the plumber who had become the center of a dangerous secret affair, was dead. The brutal way he was found sent shockwaves through the community, and the peaceful life everyone once knew was gone. Detectives arrived, quickly, ready to piece together the story hidden beneath layers of lies and betrayal. They moved carefully, knowing that the crime was not a simple one. The house where Jake's body was found became a grim crime scene, with officers collecting evidence and searching for clues that could explain what had turned a secret affair into a grisly murder. Sarah's world collapsed almost immediately. The news of Jake's death felt like a nightmare she could not wake from. She was questioned by the police, her hands trembling as she tried to explain the secret that had been eating away at her for months. She admitted the affair, her voice barely above a whisper, but insisted she had nothing to do with the violence. Mark was arrested quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Messages, witnesses, and surveillance footage placed him near the scene at the time of the murder. His calm demeanor during questioning surprised many, but the detectives saw through the mask. Mark's plan to control and punish had escalated beyond anything he had intended, and now he faced the consequences. The investigation uncovered disturbing details about the lives of all three people involved. Sarah's loneliness and longing for connection, Jake's troubled past and dangerous choices, and Mark's cold fury and thirst for revenge were pieces of a puzzle that revealed how a secret could turn deadly. Each discovery brought more questions, then answers, deepening the mystery for the detectives and the community. The neighbors who had watched quietly from their windows now found themselves caught in the middle of a scandal that exposed their own fears and secrets. Some had tried to help Sarah, others had judged her harshly, but all were shaken by the violent truth that had unfolded so close to home. As the police dug deeper, they found that Jake's life was far more complicated than anyone had imagined. He was not just a simple plumber, but someone who had been involved in dangerous activities beyond the neighborhood. His connection to Sarah had been more than just an affair. It had pulled them both into a world of deception and risk. Sarah's grief was raw and complicated. She mourned Jake's death, but also felt trapped by the consequences of their secret. She was haunted by guilt, wondering if things could have ended differently. Her marriage was broken beyond repair, and the community that once supported her now viewed her with suspicion and anger. Mark's trial became the center of attention. The story of a jealous husband driven to murder captivated the media and the public. Evidence was presented that painted a picture of a man pushed too far by betrayal and heartbreak. Yet the brutality of the crime shocked everyone. The court was faced with deciding if Mark's actions were those of a man seeking justice or a cold-blooded killer. During the trial, secrets came to light that no one expected. Witnesses revealed more about Jake's dangerous connections and his own history of violence. Sarah's testimony exposed the emotional torment she had endured and the fear that had grown around her. The courtroom was filled with tension as the truth twisted and turned with every new detail. The final verdict left many feeling unsettled. Mark was found guilty, but the judge also recognized the complex emotions and circumstances behind the crime. The sentence was harsh, but the community struggled to understand how a seemingly perfect life had fallen apart so violently. In the aftermath, the neighborhood tried to heal. Sarah moved away, seeking to escape the memories and start anew. The story of the secret affair and the grisly murder became a cautionary tale, a dark reminder of how trust can be broken and how dangerous hidden desires can be. The detectives, who had worked tirelessly on the case, were left with questions that might never be answered. How could love turn into hatred so quickly? How did secrets become weapons? And how many other stories like this were hidden behind closed doors in quiet neighborhoods? The tragedy exposed the fragile nature of human relationships and the consequences of keeping secrets. It was a story that haunted those involved and left a mark on everyone who heard it. The hidden affair, once a whisper in the shadows, had exploded into a nightmare of betrayal, violence, and loss. The aftermath of Jake's murder left the neighborhood in a state of uneasy silence. What had once been a place of calm and routine was now a site of sorrow and suspicion. Sarah's departure from the community was swift and quiet, but the echoes of her secret affair and the brutal crime lingered like a shadow over every street and home. The story that had captivated the media slowly became a permanent stain on the lives of those involved. Months passed, but the wounds remained fresh. Mark's trial ended with a guilty verdict, and he was sentenced to a long prison term. The court's decision brought a sense of justice to some, but others questioned whether it truly closed the chapter on the tragedy. Mark had been consumed by rage and heartbreak, but the murder raised deeper questions about how easily love could twist into violence when trust was broken. Detectives continued to review the case files, haunted by the complexity of what they had uncovered. Jake was more than just a victim. His dangerous past suggested he had led a double life. Investigations revealed ties to illegal activities, debts, and dangerous acquaintances that may have contributed to his downfall. This darker side of Jake's life was a piece of the puzzle that no one had expected, and it complicated the narrative of a jealous husband and a secret lover. Sarah's story became a cautionary tale told quietly in the community and beyond. People spoke of the hidden dangers behind seemingly perfect lives, of the damage caused by secrets kept in the shadows. Her grief was deep, but it was tinged with regret and guilt. She had lost more than a lover. She had lost trust, family, and a future that once seemed secure. Moving away was not just about escaping the past. It was a desperate attempt to find peace and forgiveness. The neighborhood, scarred by the events, slowly tried to rebuild its sense of safety. Yet the memory of the murder hung in the air like a silent warning. People became more guarded, more suspicious. The easy smiles and friendly greetings gave way to cautious nods and careful words. The fragile peace had been shattered, replaced by a lingering fear of what might lie beneath the surface. Mark's time in prison was marked by reflection and anger. He remained bitter about the betrayal that had driven him to kill, but he also wrestled with the reality of his actions. The man who once seemed composed and controlled was now a prisoner not only of bars, but of his own remorse and regret. Prison was a harsh place, and Mark's story became one of tragedy and loss on all sides. The community struggled to understand how a single secret could lead to such devastation. Was it the affair that caused the violence, or the choices made afterward? Was Jake a victim of his own past catching up to him? Or was Mark a man who crossed a line from which there was no return? The questions were endless, and the answers never fully satisfying. Sarah's new life far away was quiet but lonely. She avoided relationships, haunted by the memory of what had happened. Therapy helped, but the scars ran deep. She kept the details of her affair and the murder locked away, sharing only what was necessary. The pain of loss and betrayal was hers alone to carry. The detectives who had worked on the case remained vigilant. They used the lessons learned to better understand the warning signs of domestic betrayal and violence. Their work became a reminder of how complex human relationships could be, and how often danger hides behind everyday lives. Jake's family was left to mourn a man they barely knew. His secrets had hidden his true nature from them, and his violent death left unanswered questions and broken hearts. They struggled to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the one revealed by the investigation. The tragedy tore through their lives like a storm, leaving only confusion and grief. Mark's story, Sarah's story, and Jake's story became intertwined in a dark narrative of love, betrayal, and violence. The murder was more than a crime. It was a warning about what can happen when secrets grow too big and anger takes control. The quiet suburb that had seemed so safe was never the same again. As time passed, the case became a reference for others, an example of how quickly ordinary lives can spiral into tragedy. The story of the hidden affair exposed, the threatening, revenge, and the grisly murder was retold with caution, a reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that beneath the surface of everyday life, there may be storms waiting to break. The final chapter was not just about justice served or crimes committed. It was about human frailty, the cost of choices, and the devastating power of secrets kept too long. It was a story that left no winners, only survivors who carried the weight of loss and the lessons of a life forever changed.